Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. You may be Catholic or Protestant or Jewish, any religion really, and if you have faith, you probably also have a person who perhaps inspires or leads you in your faith, maybe a priest or a rabbi. My guest today is just such a person. He kind of is the model of somebody that you would want as a spiritual leader for your parish or your congregation. Except for the corny jokes, I think no room for improvement. Father Leon Burnett is here with me. He's the pastor of St. Gregory the Great's. And Father, there's a lot to talk about, except for the corny jokes. I think I got the introduction just the way you paid me to do it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, the world we're living in now, between Corona and civil disturbances and the church being under siege, there are a lot of things going on. What do you see as the status of the Catholic Church right now? Being your boots on the ground, you deal with this every day after Corona and having been locked down. What's the status right now? We're getting kind of back into having Mass and getting back into personal contact with the congregations.
Yeah, beautiful question. And first, thank you, Phil, for having me on the show. And I think the church is still strong. I really do. And there's no question the last few years we've been in the news a lot, and we have our challenges here, particularly in the Diocese of Buffalo, not only with the issue of clergy, but also the bankruptcy. So those are huge challenges. However, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And through the coronavirus and through really all of the issues of the church for the last few years, I see our parish is strong. I see the people of great faith. Are they hurt? Yes, certainly they are. But it hasn't taken their faith away from them either. And they're able to make that distinction between some human decisions and human failures, grave ones, as well as their faith in the Lord and the truth of the sacraments.
Do you hear, when you talk to your parishioners, how have they been reacting to the various situations that are happening now in our culture? Concerning the church and the lack of personal contact. It's frustrating, I'm sure. How has it affected people?
I think it's affected people probably very substantially. First of all, in my lifetime, I think in all of our lifetime, I do not know of a moment when we've been told we cannot go to church. Maybe the occasional blizzard that you're not getting to Mass, but for an extended period of time to be really basically shut down, that's unprecedented. It's unusual for us. Now, some people and cultures around the world, it's still not legal, if you will, to celebrate the Eucharist. So they're used to not being able to congregate. For us, we're used to it. Having stated that, I believe that people of good faith were plugged in. They were plugged into our parish or their own local parish. We were basically going 24 hours a day between YouTube Live and our live streaming from the church. We stepped up with a lot of different programming of spiritual talks, Divine Mercy Novena. We still had 3 daily masses, 7 masses on the weekend. We had adoration going online. We had a lot of things. So I think people of faith did the best that they could. I really think people stepped up and said, this is what we have to do. It was really awesome some Sundays to get photos emailed to me from families watching and praying in the living room. And I remember the first Sunday we were sequestered, one family sent, and it was a heartwarming picture. Here you saw the mother took the picture, the father and the 2 teenage sons are kneeling in their family room, watching, praying the prayers of consecration. The dog was there too. So I think we got a lot of Catholic pets out there now. and actually, when we had the parking lot mass, one family brought the dog. They said the dog has gotten used to being with us for services, so it's time to bring the dog too.
Well, that ought to be interesting when church gets back into the full swing of things. We'll have to bring a little pet area set up.
We'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah. You know, the culture in general, over the last few generations, has migrated away from the moral principles that we had earlier in the last century. You know, during the first half of the last century up to the 1950s and early 60s, the church and our American values were basically touted in Hollywood and in culture as the thing to look up to, the ideal. You know, I can tell you examples, all kinds of movies with Bing Crosby, where the church was defined as part of the community that was the good and the help and the thing that you looked up to. And now, after the 50s and 60s, that's kind of changed in Hollywood. It's changed in news coverage. It seems that in general, not just the church, but in general, there's been a migration away from old style morals and principles, patriotism. Is there a bigger agenda here? Or is this a natural evolution of society? How can we account for the change that we've been undergoing in the last few generations?
Well, I think I first of all agree with your observation, and I would see the same changes in culture as a whole. I think if we really looked at history, it's not the first time civilizations, countries, time periods have changed. Some periods have been very faith-filled and moral, and some, and over the course of history, we've been through this before, you know, walked away from faith and morals and church. We're in a period of real reform, I think, first of all. Secondly, I think we're in a period, yes, where we're seeing a complete divergence of secular values and faith values. I don't care what religious denomination you are, if you are Jewish or a Muslim or Hindu, if you are of the many Christian faiths, we all espouse pretty much the same values. Pretty much all of the religious traditions have certain core values that are close to being identical. However, we're seeing also in society this different thought that culture is separate from faith. The faith is allowed to be, if you will, a part of your life, but there's parameters to it. Whereas when probably you and I were both raised, the faith was the parameters for all of society. And if I went to my pastor, if I went to the sister teaching class, or if I went to the football coach, I got the same advice from all three because the values were the same. I think we're also seeing people, a greater number of people who do not really believe in God or do not really have an attachment to organized religion. We hear so often, well, I don't need to go to a church or belong to a church. I'm spiritual. And a few times I've engaged with people on that, and I said, well, what does that really mean? You know, so, well, you know, I can just talk to God on my own, and I know what God wants of us. And I said, well, it's really something. And I usually will ask, I said, do you have a doctor? And they said, yes. I said, well, why do you have a doctor? And they said, well, because at times I'm ill and I need professional advice. I said, well, sometimes maybe our spirituality and our soul is ill and we need advice from someone in that profession who's dedicated their whole life. Just as we go to a physician for medical advice and treatment, so too. But more and more in society today, particularly the younger generations, they are not tied to organized religion. I don't care if it's the Catholic Church or any other. We're all in that together. I remember one time I was sitting in my dentist's office waiting for my appointment, and his rabbi was there talking with the dentist's wife. And I said to them on the way into the appointment, I said, it was very heartwarming hearing your conversation. I said, I felt like I was at parish council. I said, we all have the same issues, trying to keep younger people engaged and allowing that to be the very foundation. I think that's where we're seeing the problem, is that by and large, we're not accepting these core values as the foundation. It's really ultimately relativism, you know, and so often we talk about relativism, and there's many forms of relativism. But the more and more relativism comes into society, the more and more we do not desire any absolute truth at all. Actually, relativism would say it doesn't exist. In some senses, you see with the coronavirus, you know, the many differing opinions and some really making a stand. I will not wear this mask, even though we're being asked to by competent political leaders and medical professionals. It's really relativism. You don't have the right to tell me I can't wear this mask. I have to wear the mask, you know. It's really relativism is the problem.
Yeah, you know, that's part of what society has come to embrace, you know, in conjunction with this migration towards a different set of moral values. That relativism, and basically what you described is what, you know, we don't need organized religion. I can talk to God, I'm spiritual. That all kind of translates to, without wanting to say it, I'm taking the easy way. I'm doing it on my own so that I don't have to be disciplined. I don't have to do anything on a regular basis. I don't have to sacrifice. I can just, when it's convenient for me, I can think that I'm spiritual and get into that mode. And maybe that's not what the church and organized religion is all about. Maybe that's about something that's a little bit more structured, a little bit more disciplined, and the understanding that faith is more than just taking the easy way. I mean, we only have a minute left in this segment, but you know, can you comment on that?
I can. I think really the role of organized religion is to form our conscience in a very clear set of practices and beliefs, and to allow that to permeate all of the decisions of our life. Otherwise, if we do not really form our conscience in a particular set of values, well, then we fall to my opinion. And conscience often becomes my opinion. My opinion is this. And some, rather than choosing faith, may choose a political party to be their ideology that they form all of their decisions by. Or some may choose a little from here and a little from there. I have different things I would like to pick the best of, if you will, and they form their own. And that becomes a challenge because we start colliding then.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're gonna wrap this segment up. When we come back, I want to talk about the fact that, you know, to be a little trite, one bad apple can spoil, you know, the barrel, whether it be police or the clergy, or, you know, the issues that have surfaced and caused trouble may be out of proportion. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about civil disturbance. We'll talk about Catholic education or religious education or private education. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.